What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Sunday Night Football NFL Pre-Lock Show here on RotoGrinders.com. I am Justin Van-Zuten, joined by Keith Eister tonight as we talk about a Sunday Night Football game between the Tennessee Titans and the Los Angeles Rams. So still a pretty healthy 53-point total or so in this game. So we should see some fireworks here, in theory anyway. It's been a weird Sunday in the NFL. And Keith, we got some time on this show. We got 50 minutes before the Sunday Night Football game locks. Plenty of time to get through the DFS analysis for this game tonight. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to go through the odd week 9 that we have had in the NFL. And as a Baltimore fan, I mean, they were getting spanked earlier in the game today. They ended up coming back to beat the Vikings. And then you look and you see, oh, the Raiders lost to the Giants. The Bills lost to the Jaguars. And all these other strange results. The Cowboys lost to the Broncos. And lo and behold, if the Titans lose tonight, the Ravens are the only team in the AFC with 2 losses somehow. It's just bizarre. I mean, the Cardinals, without their top receiver, without their top quarterback, they lost their starting running back early in the game today, and they're still going in and pasting the 49ers on the road. It's weird. There are no super teams in the NFL these days. It feels like almost anybody can go in and beat any other team a given day. I mean, this day has been so strange, and I'm sure the sports books are absolutely loving it because they've probably made a killing today. But this has been one of the more bizarre weeks that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, lots of strange stuff going on. I mean, the AFC in particular just feels really weak. There's not a team that wants to just jump up and grab the number 1 seed. Like through a couple weeks of the season, Buffalo and Kansas City were looking great. Looked like what we expected them to look like. And now, I mean, both of those offenses just cannot do anything. The Chiefs just wrapped up their victory over Green Bay. But, I mean, they're at home against a team with a backup quarterback, and they're putting less than 2 touchdowns on the board.
Yeah, I was like punt. And I brought up the standings here, and you can see that, you know, the Bills are 5-3, but they showed some vulnerability today. The Patriots are 5-4, not a dominant team by any means. The Jets and the Dolphins both only have 2 wins. You look in the AFC North, the Ravens, I mean, they squeaked by the Vikings today. They looked terrible against the Bengals a few weeks ago. Let's not forget they almost lost to Detroit. If not for a bad officiating call and a 67-yard field goal, they would have lost to the Lions a few weeks ago. You know, the Steelers are 4-3, but they don't really look like anything scary. Their point differential is negative. The Browns, hit or miss. You know, they look great today against the Bengals, but they look terrible other weeks. You know, no more Odell Beckham. Then the Bengals, who everyone thought was the best team in the AFC when they beat the Ravens a few weeks ago. The Bengals lost to the Jets, and then they got beat down by the Browns today, and suddenly they're in last place. The Titans don't have Derrick Henry, so I mean, it's going to be a tough go for them going forward. And then the South has the Colts, the Jags, and the Texans, who are all under 500. And the AFC West, everybody's either 5-4 or 5-3. Once the Chiefs win gets posted on there, you know, that division is up for grabs that anybody could go out and win. And then the Broncos went and traded Von Miller. So, yeah, the AFC is so bizarre. It could be, you know, basically 10 different teams in the playoff hunt, and, you know, who ends up coming out of that conference. Whereas everybody at the beginning of the year probably thought it was going to be the Bills and the Chiefs running over everybody. You know, that isn't the case. And, you know, the NFC yeah, maybe you got some teams standing out a little bit more, but Dallas looked bad today. The Packers, obviously, without Aaron Rodgers, maybe we can excuse that a little bit. But again, the Packers were 7-1 going into today with a plus 12 point differential. I mean, they won so many close games. And you got the Bucks, of course, who probably end up Bucks and the Cardinals and the Rams. So you do have some top teams in the NFC that are maybe separating from the pack, but it's not like we've got a super team and anybody that's just going to run away with the NFL this year. So very strange season, very strange week number 9. And it concludes with, at least Sunday concludes with Tennessee and the Rams today. The Inactives List came out about 15 minutes ago. Nothing major surprise. Von Miller is inactive for the Rams, so not ready to go yet. But Jalen Ramsey is active. AJ Brown is active. Obviously, Derrick Henry is out. Robert Woods and Matthew Stafford were both banged up, but they're both active. So anything on the injury front that is changing the way you're building these showdown lineups compared to, maybe what we expected?
I mean, other than the obvious Derrick Henry situation, we're definitely going to have to dive into this Tennessee running backs room and how that impacts the rest of their offense too, because I think there is some trickle down effect to Ryan Tannehill and the pass catchers. But outside of Henry, nothing on the injury report to be concerned. Julio Jones is in there too. So Josh Reynolds was inactive. That helps clarify the secondary wide receivers for Tennessee a little bit, which has been a murky situation all year. And on Showdown, that stuff matters to us. Like, we're always looking for the cheap value plays, but Josh Reynolds getting ruled inactive is going to put us on like the Marcus Johnson and the Chester Rogers types, but just one less guy to have to worry about when trying to decipher that situation.
Yeah, we'll dig into that here as we go along over the next 45 minutes or so, and we will take your questions. Of course, we're live on YouTube in the YouTube chat. We can take those as well. And we'll go through kind of our thought process as far as building lineups and how we're going to do that. So we'll focus on the DraftKings build. Obviously, the FanDuel build is fairly similar, but not quite as much strategy. You don't have the 1.5x multiplier for salary on your captain/MVP spot on FanDuel. So there's a little less strategy on there, but we'll mainly focus on DraftKings. And let's just kind of talk about the two teams at first here, kind of in general. The Rams would be the team that we can bring up out of the gate, and maybe a little bit more predictability here. So we've got Stafford. Obviously, we've got the NFL's perhaps the best receiver this year in Cooper Kupp. We've got Robert Woods, who is active, and Van Jefferson probably taking on a bigger role now with Deshaun Jackson out. And out of LA in total. In fact, I think I saw this afternoon that he's going to sign with somebody, but I can't remember who that was.
It was announced he's signing with the Raiders.
The Raiders, that's it. Of course. So Deshaun Jackson will be in Oakland or in Las Vegas. I knew I was going to do that sometime. And then we've got Darrell Henderson, who leads the backfield there in LA as well. It stands to reason in most lineups, you're probably going to captain somebody from the Rams just because of the, a little more predictability there. And obviously they've got a team total of 30 points. So where are you looking to start lineups tonight?
Yeah, touchdown favorites for the Rams. So I think you definitely want to lean a Ram in the captain. AJ Brown is an interesting contrarian play for deep field tournaments, but if we're talking cash games, single entry, 3 max even, I think it's going to be my two favorites are going to be Darrell Henderson and Cooper Kupp. Just the home running back with the touchdown favorite spread, always a good idea to look there. And then just the volume that Cooper Kupp is getting, very hard to overlook. Like you mentioned, probably the best wide receiver in the NFL this year through 8 weeks. So those are my two favorites and the most optimal captains, I believe.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against basically any of those big three on the Rams side, Henderson, Kupp, Stafford. And if we look at, got our lineup HQ tools open here in RotoGrinders. So again, you can become a premium member at RotoGrinders. Lots of good promo stuff that we've got for you. You get access to all our ownership projections, things of that nature. Full slates, just robust tools here in our lineup HQ to help you build lineups. So check us out, RotoGrinders.com. And get yourself a premium subscription. You can get either a single sport package or a combo package, which includes almost every sport except for NASCAR, which just wound up today. This is a good time to try it out. RotoGrinders Premium. We got college basketball getting started again this week. All the major sports pretty much in play outside of MLB at this point. So, and also check out BetMGM. They're a great sponsor of the show. Hopefully we get BetMGM as a legal sports book here in Illinois, where I am located. I know they're working on a license to get rolling here in Illinois, and Keith as well. So check out BetMGM though. Now, if you're in a legal state, you can get a cool promo right now for signing up to BetMGM. You use promo code GRINDERSBET and you can bet $10. You get $200 instantly if your team that you bet on scores a touchdown. So again, promo code GRINDERSBET at BetMGM, one of the better sports books out there. So check them out as well. And while you're at it, like and subscribe here on the YouTube channel here for RotoGrinders. Like our video here and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that very much. So let's start going through. Again, if we say an optimal build, okay, well, I like Stafford, Kupp, Henderson. Let's just say for this lineup here, there is a salary differential. I mean, captain spot on DraftKings, 19-2 for Stafford, 18-6 for Kupp, 13-8 for Henderson. So Henderson does give you a little bit of a discount. And then maybe that makes it easier to fit, say, a Kupp in the flex. And we're not going to build whole lineups here, but just kind of show you how general lineup building process would work. Because the big guns for the Rams do carry a heftier price tag. So you're not going to be able to just load up. I mean, Stafford, Kupp, and Henderson in the same lineup is probably not possible on DraftKings. Maybe a little more possible on FanDuel, but still feels pretty difficult. So going down the rest of the Rams options, obviously Woods is active. He's taken a back seat to Kupp this year, but still has a nice ceiling. Jefferson's going to have more of a role. Higbee at tight end. Then of course you got the kicker. You got the defense. And potentially Sonny Michel as a punt running back play, that maybe if you think the Rams are going to dominate, you can play him together with Henderson. Who are some of the value Ram pieces that you feel pretty good about?
So Higbee is somebody that I have played quite a bit of, even on main slates and things like that. And outside of 1 week, that he just has not been getting it done. I do like him on the showdown slate because of the price tag. But the guy I have the most interest in is actually Van Jefferson. If you look at his snap shares and routes run, he is right there with Woods and Kupp. 80% of the snaps in week 8 compared to 90% for Woods and 90% for Kupp. Ran 31 routes versus 33 for Woods and 33 for Kupp. So you mentioned just Deshaun Jackson getting out of town. And we saw that changing of the guard last week. Like Van Jefferson is the locked in number 3 wide receiver in this offense. And it's an offense that runs a lot of 3 wide sets. So Van Jefferson is going to be out there on the field. I have a lot of interest in him as the contrarian play. I think you can play him with Kupp because of the price tag. I don't mind him as a captain if you get lucky with the touchdown variants. And it's Van Jefferson that's the one that catches the touchdown pass, and then neither of the others get there. I think he can certainly get it done for you in the captain spot too.
Yeah, I don't mind him as a contrarian captain in tournaments. I think Higbee's okay as well, but Jefferson gives you a little bit more of a ceiling, and I think you can fit him in to a cash type of build. You can throw in the defense or the kicker if you're looking for a value piece, but you're going to see a lot of lineups take multiple pieces from the Rams tonight just because they're such a pretty large favorite, and their touches are just a little bit more predictable. The touches on the Tennessee side are going to be a little bit more difficult to peg. Obviously, in the old days, it was give it to Henry and throw it to Brown, and then those are where your touches are going for Tennessee. That's not necessarily the case now because obviously Henry being inactive and out for several weeks is going to muddy the waters there. So let's go through them a little bit. And what can we feel good about here? Is it literally just AJ Brown and Tannehill, and that's about all we feel safe with?
I think those are the only two that you can feel safe with. But it's a showdown slate, and we've got to do some different things. There's huge prize pools out there. You need to take a little bit of risk if you're going to find your way to the top of one of those things. I think looking at this Tennessee running back situation is a great way to play for some variance here. They bring in nearly 40-year-old Adrian Peterson off the street. Jeremy McNichols has been in the system for a couple of years, but he's significantly priced up. And Deontay Foreman gets the call off the practice squad. I think that he's in play as well. So if I had to guess, it's going to be McNichols to start, but he's priced accordingly. So, and I would argue he's even a little bit overpriced.
Yeah, he is. That's 7,800. That makes him interesting, I think, in tournaments, because we've got him at 20% ownership, which I think may be even a little high, but I just don't know. I don't know how people are going to handle the Titans. I mean, maybe you just take your AJ Brown or Tannehill in cash games and round it out with a value and go from there. But in cash games, it doesn't feel like you have to mess with these running back options. I mean, Peterson at 3K, we don't know what the touches are going to be. You're not playing Foreman in cash games just up off the practice squad. And like you said, McNichols is overpriced. So what are you doing in GPP builds as far as exposure to those guys, the running backs?
So if the 5% number on Foreman is where he's going to come in, even if it gets to 10 or 15%, I have a lot of interest there just because of the uncertainty. I mean, is Adrian Peterson really going to walk in off the street and have a major role here to start? I'm a little bit skeptical on that. So what if Foreman runs as the number 2 behind McNichols? I mean, I think McNichols is going to be the primary guy for the most part, but I'm interested in taking some shots on Foreman over Peterson as the guy to change the pace. McNichols is obviously the pass catching down back, I think, but Foreman could get some early work, and I think he could work in on the goal line a little bit too. And at $200 on DraftKings, the touchdown is all you need, really. And I think he can find his way into some optimal lineups. So Foreman is the guy I have interest in taking shots on.
Yeah, $200. I mean, it doesn't take much to pay off that salary. And if you look at some of the other, punt level options, Marcus Johnson is 800, Pruitt is 1,200, Firkser is 1,400. Chester Rogers is 1,800. I mean, those guys, sure, you can mix and match them in, but if you need a bare minimum $200, I don't mind Foreman in some GPP builds also, particularly if that lets you get up to AJ Brown or it lets you get up to more Rams, more of the top end Rams exposure. I mean, I think most people's lineups are probably going to be like 4 Rams and 2 Titans, or maybe even 5 Rams. Like, can you make a case at all for building lineups with more Tennessee players than Rams players on
it? It's hard to do. I mean, but it's an unpredictable situation because so much of this offense ran through Derrick Henry before his injury that they might skew completely pass heavy in this thing, and Ryan Tannehill might drop back 45 or 50 times. It's hard to say. If you can get there just from a volume standpoint on Tannehill dropbacks and playing McNichols as a pass catcher. I mean, I say McNichols is overpriced, but DraftKings, especially if he's going to get 6-7 catches out of the backfield, maybe he's not overpriced. So I do have some interest in McNichols still, even at the price.
I mean, even if you take it from the perspective of the Rams playing with a lead in the game, and the Titans playing in comeback mode, I mean, you could see a lot of check downs, a lot of short passes, a lot of things of that nature, like we've seen, and the Rams will happily give that up. So, and that's not going to be Peterson catching the ball. Like I worry about Peterson a lot. I think his floor is really low here. Frankly, I don't think the ceiling is all that high. The Titans are unlikely to be playing with a big lead and just handing him the ball. How much of the playbook does he know? I just, obviously Adrian Peterson's been around for a long time, and it probably doesn't take Adrian Peterson along to learn a playbook, and they've certainly probably got packages for him. But I think going out there and expecting Adrian Peterson to touch the ball even 15 times is probably a little overzealous. We've got him projected at like 6 fantasy points. I don't know. I think there's way too much that could go wrong with Peterson, and given the matchup, a whole lot that needs to go right in order for him to get there. And I know he's not that expensive, but I don't know. I guess it's some anti-Adrian Peterson bias, but I'm skeptical about his ability to just come in and be boom right off the bat, putting up double-digit fantasy points.
I'm right there with you, but the thing that I'm terrified about is that he has the goal line role at 3K. I mean, if they do get down there in close and he's the guy,
in the end zone a couple
he
times.
falls in twice, and you get the LeGarrette Blunt game or somebody like that. James Conner comes to mind. Where
yes, given the way today has gone,
exactly.
Just play everybody we don't like, and then those will be the guys that go off. Yeah, it's tricky. I am going to be underweight on Peterson, but I still think it's the right process. But
I agree with you. Yep.
If we look at the DraftKings ownership on these defenses, the Rams are 4,800, which is a bit pricey for a defense. The Titans are 2,600. We've got them both in the teens as far as ownership. But I brought this up on Thursday. You know, the last time we have seen a defensive touchdown in a showdown game was week 3, which was an Eagles-Cowboys game. And I think there have only been 2 showdown games all year where a defense has scored a touchdown, and they've only been on the optimal lineup once, which is really strange. You know, you'd think but you just start to think into what some of these primetime games have been this year. A lot of them have gone over the total. And we simply haven't seen a lot of touchdowns. And sure, it could happen. But I mean, you know, 4,800 for the Rams projected at 6 points. Well, that's the same projection that we've got for Adrian Peterson, who I just brushed aside a few minutes ago. And we've got the Titans defense projected for 4 points. And you really want to play them against the Rams, you know, sure, they're probably going to be a showdown game at some point, you know, before the end of this year, where a defense gets 2 touchdowns, but banking on it it doesn't make sense. And you got a game with a 53 total. The kickers are both cheaper than the Rams defense. So like Xing out the defense has worked in 20 some odd primetime games already this year. I get it if you want to play the Rams because of all their talent, but they don't have Von Miller active yet. And I don't know, they just haven't been optimal in these primetime slates. So I don't think I'm going to play the defenses.
I'm not either. How I kind of look at defenses is how many people below them can outscore them. Like, do we need that value? And I think with the Titans running back situation, you have 2 great value plays in Peterson and Foreman, and then in their third wide receiver slot, I think, is up in the air as well. So I want to rotate some Marcus Johnson, some Chester Rogers, some Westbrook Akina. By the time I do all of that, I don't have a need to play the defenses for value. Then you have the tight ends also, which
all of Tennessee's tight ends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Any
tight
one of them
ends.
can catch a touchdown.
Let's go. Let's get Swaim in there. Let's get Ferkser in there. We got to get Higbee in there. We're playing all the tight ends. The obligatory tight end touchdown. What was it? Was it Monday night's game where we had an offensive lineman touchdown and a tight end touchdown? I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah.
Or Thursday night's game.
Thursday night it was. Yep.
And Jonathan Taylor running for about 6,000 yards too. But yeah, you look the kickers are cheaper than the defense. All of Tennessee's tight ends, all of Tennessee's third receiver options, both of the running backs not named McNichols. Sonny Michel is under 3K. There's so many guys that feel like you mentioned Marcus Johnson, Foreman's down there at $200, Rogers, Ferkser, Swaim, all these guys. There are so many options. It's not like a team where all these touches are going to be concentrated and there's nobody for us to choose down here. We've seen the garbage value get there almost every slate with somebody. Derek Gore a few Monday nights ago at 0.2% ownership. Like, I'm willing to bank on this not being a game where we see 2 defensive touchdowns. So queue them up. It's probably going to happen now, but the process I still think is right to not play the defenses here. All right, let's take a pause. And if you've got some questions, throw them in the YouTube chat. We're happy to take them. We still got about 25 minutes here until kickoff. I'll go through a couple other RotoGrinders tools, maybe talk about FanDuel for a couple minutes. But we're only about halfway through the program here. So feel free to get your questions in. And I am going to look through. Let's see. All right. People want to talk about FanDuel. I'll talk about that in a second. Somebody wanted me to pull up Slate IQ. I've got that open. I'll pull that up in a minute. Somebody talking about Patrick Mahomes. Biggest dart throw. I mean, I think you put 6 guys from the Titans in that mix. Who's your favorite dart throw out of all those pass catchers for the Titans?
Out of the pass catchers, I would say it is.
Yeah, when we talked about the running backs pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, Foreman is my favorite dart throw on the slate. I just think he might run ahead of Adrian Peterson. I have no idea. That's just something I'm taking a shot on. My favorite pass catching dart throw would be Marcus Johnson. 5 targets last week. Seemed to be running clearly ahead of Chester Rogers. So Marcus Johnson is my guy there.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull up their snap counts too and see what they had. So let's see. Marcus Johnson played on 66% of the snaps last week, 48 offensive snaps, at 43% the week before. So yeah, definitely trending in the right direction there. And Chester Rogers only played on 42% of the snaps last week. So good call there. I think Marcus Johnson, definitely the one that's trending in the right direction, and he's pretty affordable there. What is he, $800? I think, yeah, $800 on DraftKings. So he'll get some ownership, but yeah, I kind of like that a little bit better than trying to figure out their tight ends or their other kind of wide receiver 3 options. All right, talk about the running backs. Thoughts on Peterson? We're both quite concerned there. Any interest in using Tannehill for captain?
I would rather do AJ Brown, just because I could see the volume concentrating on AJ Brown. Let me see what we have projected as Tannehill versus Brown in the ownership. If Brown is going to end up popular,
we got Brown just a touch higher, but it's basically the same.
Yeah, I prefer AJ Brown over Tannehill.
All right. Mr. Donk says the Titans tight end situation is the absolute worst. I would agree with that. Yeah. Ferkser has played on 29% of the snaps this year, Swaim on 58, and Pruitt on 45. But I think, yeah, Ferkser missed a couple of games. So like but he's still only Ferkser's been kind of around a 30% snap share. The last couple of games. Pruitt kind of around 30 to 35% snap share, and then Swaim has been in the 70s. So Swaim has clearly seen the most snaps, but he's also the most expensive. And it's not like he's this can't miss guy. I mean, he's had, prior to last week, he had 4 straight games with 1 target. So, they'll use him to block, and he did have 5 targets last week and scored a touchdown against the Colts, but it's not like that was his first touchdown of the year. So it's not like the Swaim is this can't miss guy. You don't need to prioritize him by any means. So don't feel like you need to go to the Titans tight end situation at all. All right. Let's see. Yeah, somebody was asking about Blasingame, but I think he's hurt. Let me double. He's
not on inactives, but maybe he's on IR, so they didn't have to make him inactive.
Double check that. Either that, or we just don't have him projected. Maybe we just don't have him projected. He's just kind of a fullback type, so he might fall into the end zone.
Yeah, the passing game. I mean, I'm not interested in it anyway because McNichols is so savvy in the passing game. He's going to be clearly the guy for me in the passing game. I don't think they need to mess with passing game.
I think he's got a touch. Like he is not inactive, so I was wrong there. But I don't, unless his blurb that I was reading wasn't updated. I can't. I didn't look at him, to be honest. I don't think he's got anything of a role.
He's on injured reserve. So
okay.
do not
I was going to say, I thought I thought I had heard that, but I looked at a blurb on him quick and didn't see it there. It's not even relevant. Wasn't even relevant enough to get to get updated.
I found something on CBS Sports
All right.
that says blasting place on injured reserve.
Fair enough. All right, so he is out. All right, let's take a quick look at Slate IQ here, and we have redesigned this. I know Blunder likes to show this off on the Thursday night show that I'm on with him, and on the Monday night show as well. So, we got the odds in here, and you can check us out at scoresandodds.com, which is our kind of a sports betting, arm here at RotoGrinders. Don't look at my picks for today though, because it was a weird day in the NFL, so we're just gonna blame it on that. But you can get all the game lines here. You can see it's pretty steady now, with the Rams favored by a touchdown. Over under 52.5, 53 on most sports books. I like the under in this game. I think that line is too high, with the uncertainty with the Titans offense, and if the Rams get out to a big lead, or I don't know, 53 just seems like a big number for this game. And I know a lot of the primetime games have gone over. I know the public likes to bet the over, and I think maybe that's why the line is so high. So I like the under tonight. We'll see if that hits. You look at some of the player props here, and again, we've got BetMGM, our sponsor. Check them out and get a sign up and use promo code GRINDERSBET. Get a $200 bonus if you bet $10 and your team scores a touchdown. You can see Stafford's prop pretty steady at 2.5 touchdowns, and about 265 yards. Stafford is about 302 passing yards, so his prop over 300 passing yards. Pretty incredible. Some of the pass catchers, again, the Titans tight ends, like 9, 10, 12 yards. Not much to get excited about. Higbee's at 37. AJ Brown is at 74 on FanDuel, 71 on BetMGM, 70 on PointsBet. So his prop differs by a few yards. Our projections have him at 82. So our projections like the over on the AJ Brown yardage tonight. Van Jefferson is in the mid 40s. Cooper Kupp is at 98.5. So that's a big number. Getting plenty of respect for his production this year. Julio at 45, Robert Woods at 60, Darrell Henderson at about 18 receiving yards. But our projections like the over on a lot of those numbers. You look at the rushing yards, Henderson's at 76, Adrian Peterson's at 34. And our projections actually like the under on that number, in kind of the lower 30s. Sonny Michel at 22. Quarterbacks obviously at pretty low numbers. So you can get all these player props. You can get the half lines, first half lines. You can compare lines among different sports books. You can see the line is still at 7 on a couple books here, but it's at 7.5 on BetMGM and a few more. So check us out, scoresandodds.com, and you can get all of our picks for all the different sports in here as well. At the top of the screen, you can see there's our picks. You can get all the lines. You can get trends. You can get props, injuries, matchups, and so forth. And it even has little game trackers as the games are going along with play-by-play and stuff like that. So pretty cool stuff we have started to integrate into Scores and Odds. All right, back to Slate IQ as requested. Just hit me when I saw the odds on there to show off Scores and Odds a little bit. So Slate IQ, we've changed it up a few times, changed up the format, heard the feedback. It's just kind of still evolving. So they look a little different now if you haven't seen these in a while. But you can see here for team allocation, and what this does is it simulates similar game type. It goes off historical games with similar spreads, similar numbers, and kind of sees, okay, what does the field do in these types of games? And then what do we see in the top 0.1% of lineups? So you can see primetime showdown slates. The gray bar is the number of players from the winning team, and then the blue bar is the number of players from the losing team. So, or let me read that over again. The numbers down here. So you see this 5-1. That's 5 players from the winning team, 1 player from the losing team. The gray bar is what the field does. The blue bar is what the top 0.1% of lineups do. The 4-2, 4 players from the winning team, 2 players from the losing team. The gray bar is what the field does. Blue bar is what the top 0.1% do. So you'd think in a lot of games like this, 5-1 builds, right? 5 Rams, 1 Titans. The field does this at about a 10% clip, but we see the top lineups only do it 4% of the time. Same thing with the 4-2s. So we're seeing in these types of games where it's actually 3-3 being optimal, or 2 players from the winning team and 4 players from the losing team, based on what the field is doing versus the top 0.1% of lineups. So that is interesting. One nugget you can kind of do, and you can see the leverage in here. If I sort, let's see, can we sort this?
The 2-4 is the one that really jumped out at me, and we kind of touched on that a little bit about why. But I mean, if you think about it, you run your Cooper Kupp at captain with Matt Stafford, so that's a bulk of the Rams production. Or if you prefer Darrell Henderson to score the 2 touchdowns, Darrell Henderson is the captain with Stafford in the flex maybe, and those are your 2 Rams that take up a bulk of the production. And then you sprinkle in some of those Titans value plays that get there through volume in comeback mode. And I think that type of build makes a lot of sense to me. That's how I built a lot of my lineups. And as you can see, it's you get a little bit of leverage. It ends up optimal more than the field is going to do that. So that's one of my favorite builds for this slate particularly.
Yeah, that's where our highest leverage is. I can't sort that, but you can see that's where the leverage is on the 2-4s and the 3-3s. And again, we've kind of changed up the format of this a little bit. So we're all kind of getting used to it at the same time. But you can see this is kind of the simulated optimal roster construction. It doesn't mean that a 4-2 can't win, obviously. It's just that the field's going to do it more than it's going to hit optimally. So yeah, 3-3-2-4, and that's what you can see in our analysis. If you look at captain usage, so the field is generally captaining a quarterback or a top running back. But the top 0.1% of lineups, we see the leverage come in here with a captain on a tight end, which would probably be Higbee in this case, or a wide receiver 1, which huge leverage there. So it would indicate, if you trust the Slate IQ data, if you trust the simulations there, that somebody like Kupp or Brown would be the top captain tonight.
Yeah, so we have Kupp projected to be owned about 19% in the captain, with his optimal percentage approaching 23%. So just because Kupp is going to be the most owned captain does not mean that you shouldn't play him in the captain. We actually have him coming in a little bit under-owned in the captain spot tonight.
Yep. So I scrolled down to that projected captain usage here on the screen share, and you can see what Keith was just mentioning. We've got Kupp projected at 19% owned in the captain, and the optimal build will be 23% of the time. That gives you plenty of leverage there. AJ Brown, we actually have the opposite way. So the data is telling you maybe Kupp is a better captain than AJ Brown, based on where we have the projected ownership. Henderson, pretty neutral in terms of leverage there. Same with Tannehill, Robert Woods, Stafford. Nothing major really stands out in projected captain usage other than Kupp, being optimal more often than what we have him at projected ownership. And Sonny Michel, even with some positive leverage there, though he's only going to be, these are lower owned guys, so take the bars with a grain of salt. It's 2% versus 1.2%. So
that's very important to point out. When they have at that page break, the total percentage resets.
Yep.
So it looks like Michelle is almost as much leverage as Kupp, but it's actually, we're talking about like 2.2 total percent of ownership. So just feedback. We need to email somebody or ping somebody in Slack that we shouldn't have that reset, because it definitely skews the visual aspect of it.
Yeah, it's a scaling issue. So positive leverage on Michelle, but still only 2.2% of the time optimal in the captain. So on a percentage basis overall, it's not that high, but for what it's worth. All right. Flex usage. You can look at projected flex usage here as well. Saying Stafford 61% optimal versus only 50% owned. So Stafford in the flex, which again makes sense if you're captaining Kupp. Stafford in the flex makes sense there. Higbee positive leverage. So basically the data is telling you positive leverage on some of these Rams higher end plays, and then you'd be filling in the value, with those Titans guys if you're filling out that 2-4 or 3-3 type of build. And look at Foreman here. Optimal 19% of the time in the flex, versus only 5% projected ownership. So that $200 Foreman play looking pretty good according to the Slate IQ data. McNichols not as much. So we've got him projected at 20% ownership and optimal 8% of the time. So the data likes Foreman there. So more fuel for you, Keith.
It's almost like I use this to build my lineup.
Yeah, and then you can look at, we got some charts on projected ownership, past comparable slates. This is probably pretty hard to see in the screen share view, just because it's a lot of data combined together, but basically the same type of stuff we just talked about in kind of a more condensed table. And that's it. So that is the Slate IQ data. So that's two of our tools here at RotoGrinders. Scores and odds. Check us out, scoresandodds.com and Slate IQ as well. Slate IQ you can unlock with that RotoGrinders premium subscription that we talked about earlier. Sign up and get access to all the big sports going on right now for sure. All right, so let's go back to lineup HQ here and see. I don't think we've had anything new break. Obviously, we had Inactives about an hour ago. So if you got questions, drop them in the YouTube chat. We got 10 minutes to go until roster lock. And Devin threw a link in the chat. You can get $10 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium if you click that link to join today. So there you go. And we do have that link in the chat, I think, as well, or in the description as well. You can check out our podcast feed, all that good stuff. All right, few questions in the chat. Van Jefferson or Julio Jones? Do you like more in a GPP?
I like the Rams to score more points. I talked about Van Jefferson's solidified role last week. I think that's a trend we see continuing forward. So I'm on the Rams side of that and Jefferson. A little bit of concern with Julio's hamstring too. I mean, this is a guy who throughout his career has left games early or stands out there on the outside as a decoy while the other guys run the routes.
I mean, is he just washed at this point, or is it?
If he can't stay healthy, I think he certainly is. If he can get his body right, I mean, there's certainly still talent there, I think. But
I mean, how long has he been? How old is Julio Jones? I have to Google this.
He's low 30s, I think, but just barely over 30.
He's 32.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't judge. I'm 37 now, so I can't judge him too much. But I'm not playing the NFL, so.
That's right. I know what my body feels like after some exercise. So.
Right. Talk about FanDuel for a quick second. Obviously, a FanDuel build is going to look pretty similar, but you don't have the salary multiplier for your MVP over there, and you're also only dealing with a 0.5 point PPR. So, and Foreman is not available on FanDuel, so that's another thing. McNichols, I believe, is 10K, and Peterson's 8,500 on FanDuel. So, anybody might like a little better on FanDuel than on DraftKings.
So Tannehill is definitely the answer. So the thing with FanDuel scoring is it's very hard to outscore the quarterbacks because you only get 0.5 point per reception. You don't have the yardage bonuses for the wide receivers and running backs, rushing and receiving. Just as a data point, I ran 150 optimal lineups, and Stafford is the optimal captain in every one of those. So to get different at captain, it's more difficult, but Tannehill would be the guy that I would look to. I think you could take a shot on Henderson as well over Stafford and just hope that you run hot with the touchdowns. Like if Henderson runs in 2 touchdowns and Stafford only throws for 1, then you're probably in pretty good shape there.
And you can play both quarterbacks and Henderson, and you're probably not getting cut. You're not getting Kupp in that lineup, but you can get Jefferson's only 8K. And that leaves you 8K for a final spot. So you can get both quarterbacks plus Henderson if you want. You just have to sacrifice one. You either have to sacrifice one quarterback or Henderson or Kupp. You can probably play 3 of those 4. You can't play them all or you run out of salary. So, whoever you feel most comfortable with. And if you got Stafford in the MVP, you get his production that way too. So the build is fairly straightforward on FanDuel. The defenses aren't options over there. You don't have the salary multiplier, and we don't have Foreman on the slate. So you don't have to get quite as deep into the punt plays on FanDuel as you do on DraftKings. So you're probably gonna lean more on those.
I would say it's much easier to fade Cup on FanDuel too, because
half PPR and he's super expensive.
Exactly. Like the volume is real, like the 30+% target share. I don't think that's going anywhere. But what I am skeptical of is the touchdown variance. He has ran super hot with touchdowns all year long. And touchdowns are king on FanDuel. If Woods and Jefferson are catching the touchdowns or Henderson's running them in, like I mentioned, you're not going to need Cup. So much easier to fade Cup on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings.
Yeah, if you look at the 2 games that he didn't score a touchdown, 8.9 FanDuel points and 12.7 FanDuel points. The two games where he didn't score a touchdown. Like if Cup doesn't score a touchdown, he's not getting there at $16,000.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 2,000 more than Tannehill. That's just a tough ask on FanDuel. So yeah, you can get the Stafford, Tannehill, Henderson, play Jefferson as a cheap wide receiver, and the lineup build comes together pretty easily on FanDuel. And obviously in tournaments, you can be a little different. You can play AJ Brown or Julio or whoever you want there with the studs. That's where the ownership's going to concentrate on FanDuel. So it's a little easier to get different if you're fading one or two of those guys. All right, we got about 5 minutes to game time here. Yes, Andre says both QBs and Henderson on FanDuel. Absolutely, that's kind of where where most people are going to go if you're playing cash games on FanDuel. All right, Cup, MVP, or Higbee on FanDuel. So I don't really think you need either. You're probably not MVPing Higbee on FanDuel with the format and the fact that it doesn't multiply the salary. So definitely, in our eyes, it's one of the quarterbacks that you probably want to MVP on FanDuel. All right, DK, GPP, AJ Brown, or Tannehill if you only can play one of them.
I think that's the question of the slate, right? Everybody's going to pay up for one Titan, and those are the two popular choices.
When I refreshed last, I went back to the DraftKings main slate here. I got to go back to when I refreshed last, we had them both at 36.4 exactly percent ownership. So,
and according to the Gridiron IQ projections, 18.9 for Tannehill, 18.15 for AJ Brown. So
yeah,
truly a coin flip.
37.4% owned for both of them. It is a coin flip. I mean, I think you look at the last couple games for AJ Brown, he was banged up, played one of them with food poisoning, and he's still been going nuts. I mean, he's going to get a huge target share. I still think Tannehill is safer. I mean, you just get access to all the production, but AJ Brown, if he's getting 40% of the air yards or something like that, and he hauls in a couple long ones, definitely has the ceiling. So I think AJ Brown and GPPs is certainly fine. All right, Brown. This is a DK Cash question. So Brown, Henderson, or Tannehill? DK Cash.
For DK Cash, Henderson would be my preferred of the three.
Yeah, I would agree. Would you go with Westbrook Akine or one of the Tennessee tight ends? Who's got the magic 8 ball here?
Yeah, right. Let's see.
Let's look at his targets. 3 targets last week.
Yeah, I prefer Marcus Johnson over Westbrook Akine. I think.
Hey, Westbrook or Marcus Johnson, $800, and maybe you can upgrade somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't think that
Marcus Johnson has been injured most of the year. Let me see if he was active last. Yeah, he has been active for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, he played
so
like 65% of the snaps last week, 43% the week before. So,
yeah. So I don't know if it was random that he just popped up for 5 targets, or if it was just his week to run ahead of Westbrook and Rodgers, or what the deal is there. But I'm riding with what I saw last week on Marcus Johnson.
At this point, though, the answer should always be a tight end on the showdown slates. It's going to be one of those tight ends. Right. Just a matter of figuring out which one of the 5 it is. It'll be the one that we don't play. But sprinkle these guys in your GPPs. Marcus Johnson is gaining some momentum. So I don't mind that as an $800 play for sure. All right, so we are down to about a minute to kick off here. Should be a really interesting game. And like I said, I mean, you look at the standings, If the Titans don't win this game, then the Ravens are the only team in the AFC with 2 losses. I mean, that's just wide open. 1 through about 10 in the AFC, could swing with every passing week. You got a whole bunch of teams with 5 wins. So you're going to have a lot of, the way it's shaping up, a really interesting kind of playoff race in the AFC, maybe not quite as much in the NFC, but pretty wild to see the standings through 9 weeks this year so far.
Are the Chiefs just broke? I guess we could wait till after lock for that. But
No, I mean, we're down about 30 seconds anyway, and we don't have any more questions. But I don't know. I mean, it's been their defense, and then today it was the offense, and you see Patrick Mahomes making throws that we're just not. I don't know. We're just not used to him making, and I don't know if it's like the pressure on him because of the defense being so poor, or if teams are figuring them out. And Kelsey's had his issues. I don't know. They should not be as bad as they are, but you sit here and think, oh my gosh, the Chiefs are going to end up as the 6th seed in the playoffs, and nobody wants to see them in the first round of the playoffs. It's like, okay, they could get matched up against the Bills in the first round of the playoffs or the Ravens or somebody like that. And that would be frightening for whoever they get matched up against. So I don't know. Maybe we're still clinging to the old name value of the Chiefs. It's a really good question. I don't have the answer.
Yeah, the regression from Patrick Mahomes is very interesting. Like, he always took risks, but it seemed like they were calculated risks. Now, I mean, sometimes he's just throwing it up there. I don't know if that's just like variance, and he was always making poor decisions, but just getting lucky. But yeah, really interested to see if that ends up turning around.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. At this point, as a Ravens fan, I just hope they don't get matched up at the beginning of the playoffs, because I don't want to test that theory out. We'll let somebody else test it out. But anyway, Jason Martinez says he'll be at the bottom of the leaderboard if anybody needs him. That's not the kind of attitude we want to take. We want happy night for sure. And this should be an interesting game to watch. So with that, we'll get on out of here. We're after lock. Thanks for hanging out with us. And again, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the RG YouTube channel if you haven't already, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everybody. For Keith and our producer, Devin, I'm Justin. Take care. We'll see you back here tomorrow night for a Monday Night Showdown here on RotoGrinders.com. Have a good one.